Last Thanksgiving, I watched my ex-mother-in-law open the door, glance at the pie my son and I baked, and say coldly, "You're not welcome here anymore." Then she turned, smiled, and pulled another woman into the house. Behind her, my ex-husband stood silent. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just knelt down, wiped my son's tears, and whispered, "One day, they'll regret this, but not today. Not here." I'm Jessica Morgan, 33 years old, full-time single mom, part-time baker, and, apparently, an outsider to the family I gave 10 years of my life to. I used to be married to Daniel Morgan, big shot attorney, Southern gentleman on paper, spineless shadow in real life. We have a 6-year-old son, Ethan. My whole world. Daniel's family used to be mine. We had Sunday dinners, Christmas stockings, and matching pajamas. Until the divorce. Now, I'm a ghost they pretend never existed. But what they forgot is I remember everything. And I don't forget betrayal. If you've ever been excluded by people you once called family, or if you felt invisible in a room you helped build, then keep watching. And hey, while you're here, hit the like button and subscribe. Because what happened next? They never saw it coming. Before, I was the woman standing at the front porch with a cooling pie and a heart full of silence. I was Jess, the one who made apple cobbler from scratch every 4th of July. The one who stayed up late, gluing glitter onto Ethan's kindergarten poster board while Daniel scrolled through work emails. The one Margaret once called the glue of this family. Until the glue cracked, and they watched me fall apart. I met Daniel Morgan during my final year of college in Charleston. He was 2 years older, already working at a prestigious law firm, charming as hell, and impossible to say no to. He had that southern politeness that made waitresses blush and mothers swoon. I was drawn in fast, maybe too fast. But when you're young and believe in happy endings, you don't think twice. Our marriage was a fairy tale for exactly 10 months. Then came the subtle criticisms. My cooking lacked flair. I didn't dress like a professional wife. I was too emotional, especially after Ethan was born. Daniel didn't yell. He didn't cheat. He just slowly stopped trying. And worse, he let his mother take over every corner of our life. Margaret Morgan was the kind of woman who wore pearls to brunch and judged you silently with a single look. She was a widow, proud matriarch of the Morgan household, and believed deeply that no one would ever be good enough for her sons. Especially not the art major who didn't come from old Charleston blood. Still, I tried. God, I tried. I learned her meatloaf recipe, hosted family dinners, let her choose Ethan's daycare, his Easter outfits, even his middle name. I gave her more control over my life than I ever gave my own mother. But nothing I did was ever enough. Daniel never defended me. "She means well," he'd say whenever Margaret's comments left me blinking back tears. Or worse, "It's just how she is." That phrase haunted me. Just how she is. For a long time, I thought I could win her over. That if I stayed patient, kept the house spotless, dressed conservatively, and played the part, she'd finally accept me. But Margaret didn't want a daughter-in-law. She wanted a shadow. And I refused to disappear. The breaking point came 2 years ago. Daniel had been spending more late nights at the firm, at least. That's what he told me. But it didn't take much to connect the dots. Brittany Davis, the fresh-faced legal assistant with glossy hair and a laugh like a sorority girl's ringtone, suddenly started popping up in family photos. At first, I thought I was paranoid. Then I caught him texting her at 1 a.m. He didn't even deny it. He just sighed and said, "Jess, you've been unhappy for a while. Maybe we both have. Translation. I found someone easier, more manageable, someone my mother approves of. The divorce was swift, clean on paper, messy underneath. I got primary custody of Ethan. He got the house, the car, and Margaret's undying loyalty. She didn't even try to hide her relief. I remember her exact words the day I dropped off Ethan after the divorce was finalized. Well, at least now he can start over with someone who fits. I cried in my car for an hour after that. Not because I wanted Daniel back, but because I had given so much, and somehow ended up being the villain in a story I built. Still, I moved on. Slowly, I took freelance baking gigs, started hosting cooking classes online. Ethan and I moved into a small apartment near the bay, cozy and full of sunlight. It wasn't much, but it was ours. Every other weekend, he'd stay with Daniel. He never said much about it. Just that Grandma Margaret always talks about how pretty Brittany is, and that she buys the good snacks. I smiled and nodded. That's what moms do. We absorb the sting, so our kids don't have to. Then came Thanksgiving, Margaret's favorite holiday. Tradition meant everything to her. Polished silverware, perfect turkey, a table where only true Morgans were allowed to sit. Daniel had mentioned, offhandedly, that they were hosting again this year. Maybe I could stop by for a bit, I said, careful not to push, just to bring Ethan's favorite pie. He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Let me check with Mom." That was my answer. Right there. He wasn't the man of the house. She was. Still. Ethan begged me to come. "Please, Mommy, just for a little. I want us all to eat together like before." So I baked the pie. Pumpkin with cinnamon crumble on top. His favorite. I dressed in my softest sweater, fixed my hair, put on some mascara for the first time in months. Not for them, for Ethan. We drove over just before dinner started. I remember how excited he was, clutching the pie with both hands, humming softly in the back seat. And then we got to the door. Margaret answered it herself. She looked surprised for exactly half a second. Then her face settled into that cold, practiced smile. "Well, this is unexpected." Ethan smiled. "Mommy made the pie you like." Margaret looked down at him. "Sweetheart, that's very kind. But this evening's family only." Daniel appeared behind her. Brittany followed, already holding Ethan's seat. No one invited us in. No one took the pie. Just silence and shame. And right there on that polished doorstep, I understood something. This wasn't about tradition. It was about erasing me, replacing me. So I smiled, gently took the pie back, held Ethan's hand, and walked away. After Thanksgiving, something in me changed. It wasn't a dramatic moment. No shouting, no slammed doors, just a quiet unraveling like a thread being pulled from a sweater. I didn't fall apart. I came undone, piece by piece. Ethan kept asking when we could visit again. I gave him vague answers. Said Grandma might be busy. But kids sense the things you don't say. He stopped asking after a while. That silence, it hurt more than his questions. I thought maybe, just maybe, Margaret would soften. That someone, Daniel, even would reach out, apologize, acknowledge the cruelty of that moment on the doorstep. But the silence wasn't accidental. It was intentional, strategic. Then came the Christmas card, a glossy photo of the Morgan family, smiling in front of a decorated fireplace. Daniel, in a plaid sweater. Brittany, standing beside him with her perfectly curled hair resting on his shoulder. Margaret in the center, her pearls glinting under the tree lights. And Ethan, my Ethan, perched on Brittany's lap. No mention of me. Not even a co-parent credit. Just wishing you love and joy from the Morgans. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I was surprised, but because they had made it official. I'd been replaced, erased. They didn't just exclude me, they edited me out of my own child's life. I started noticing other things. At pickup, Ethan's backpack would have snacks labeled from Grandma. He came home with shirts I hadn't bought. One day, he told me Brittany helped him with his school project. She knows how to use PowerPoint, he said proudly. I smiled, said that was great. Then locked myself in the bathroom and cried on the edge of the tub. Every detail felt like a slow invasion. A quiet, polite takeover, not just of my child, but of my place, my identity, my worth. I wasn't bitter. I was boiling. But I swallowed it, again and again, until the school event. Ethan's class was doing a winter recital each child would sing. Then bring a special guest on stage. Parents, grandparents, whoever meant the most to them. Ethan had told me all week, I'm gonna pick you, Mommy. So I left work early, brought cupcakes, wore the red scarf he loved. The gym was packed. Rows of folding chairs, camcorders and iPhones held high. I spotted Daniel in the third row, Brittany next to him, beaming. Margaret 2 seats over, tight-lipped as always. I sat alone on the left aisle. Didn't care. This was for Ethan. When his name was called, he walked to the mic, eyes scanning the crowd. Then he smiled. Can my mommy come up? I stood. I actually started walking. But before I reached him, Margaret stood too. She grabbed Brittany's hand. Loud enough for the front row to hear, she said. Let her sit. Let Brittany go up. It'll look better for the press photos. Daniel nodded. Ethan looked confused, hesitated, and Brittany stepped onto the stage. He didn't cry. He didn't protest. He just clapped along with the music. I returned to my seat, hands trembling. After the show, a few parents tried to make small talk. One asked if I was Ethan's nanny. I laughed, said no, didn't explain. What would I have said? I'm the mother they're pretending doesn't exist. On the drive home, Ethan was quiet. He fiddled with the hem of his coat. Finally, he said, I thought they'd let you come up. I kept my eyes on the road. I know, baby. I thought so too. I dropped him off at Daniel's that evening. He ran inside without looking back. Margaret stood at the doorway. It's nothing personal, Jessica, she said, with that infuriating calm. We just didn't want to confuse him. It's better this way. Brittany's very maternal. I blinked. You think this is better? She smiled. Well, look how agreement. I had full legal decision-making authority. Daniel had visitation, but no right to make major decisions without consulting me. That included school, medical care, and critically public representation of our child. So when I saw a new flyer go up at the school, Ethan featured front and center, arms around Brittany and Daniel, under a headline that read, The Morgans. Giving back, I called the principal. I didn't scream. I didn't accuse. I asked calmly, Did you get a media release from me? I'm Ethan's legal guardian. There was a long pause. Then a flurry of apologies. Promises to take it down. It disappeared within 24 hours. Margaret called me that night. You went behind our backs. No, I said. I enforced a boundary. You're being petty. I'm being a mother. She hung up. But it was the first time I saw them rattled. Just a little. And I realized something. They only had power because I'd handed it to them. Every time I swallowed pain in silence, I let them rewrite the story. No more. Part 4. Preview. Breaking point and plan. Sometimes the quiet ones aren't weak. They're watching. And when they finally speak, they speak with action. I wasn't just going to protect my son. I was going to remind the Morgans exactly who I am. I didn't sleep much after the recital. Not because of the stage. Not even because of Brittany standing in the spotlight that should have been mine. It was Ethan. His silence. The way he curled up under his blanket, holding the teddy bear I bought him years ago, and whispered, "Maybe next time, Mommy." He wasn't angry. He wasn't confused. He was adjusting, and that scared me more than anything. Children are adaptable. Too adaptable. That's how they survive toxic dynamics. They shrink themselves to fit the silence. Forget what they deserve. I wasn't going to let that happen to my son. The next morning, I opened a new browser tab and typed one phrase: Parental alienation law, South Carolina. From there, the pieces started falling into place. For weeks, I read everything I could. Case studies, custody agreements, court testimonies. I joined online support groups filled with women like me, mothers who had been gradually pushed out of their children's lives, not through violence, but manipulation. They called it covert erasure. It starts with unreturned texts, then skipped birthdays, changed stories, new routines. Eventually, your child forgets the version of life where you mattered most. And I'd been watching that happen in real time. What Margaret was doing wasn't just mean, it was strategic. Brittany was the new mother in their narrative. I was the inconvenient past they were rewriting. And Daniel, he was letting it happen to keep the peace. His silence was complicity. But I wasn't powerless. Not anymore. The first thing I did was schedule a meeting with a new attorney. Her name was Vanessa Green. Early 40s, sharp as glass, kind in a way that didn't feel performative. She read through my custody file and looked me straight in the eye. "This isn't unusual," she said, "but it's serious. You have rights. You also have leverage." She told me we couldn't change people, but we could change boundaries. And the Morgans had been crossing every line I never drew. That was about to change. Step 1. Documentation. I started keeping detailed records. Every pickup. Every drop-off. What Ethan said when he came home. What he wore. How he behaved. I saved the Christmas card. Printed the school flyer. Collected text messages. Screenshots. Voicemails. Every small thing they thought I'd ignore, I saved it. Step 2. Visibility. I rebuilt my presence in Ethan's school life. I volunteered at his art showcase, donated snacks for the Valentine's party, signed up for field trip chaperone duty. I made sure the faculty saw me, knew that I wasn't a side note in Ethan's life. One of the teachers pulled me aside during a parent-teacher night. "I didn't realize you were Ethan's mom," she said gently. "We usually see Brittany." I smiled. "Now you've met the original." Step 3. Clarity. I sent a respectful but firm email to Daniel. Subject: regarding co-parenting boundaries. I listed clear points. No public representation of Ethan without my written consent. No decisions involving media, school events, or health without consultation. No substitution of maternal roles. No more calling Brittany mom. Not in front of him. Not in school. Not anywhere. I ended with, "This isn't a war. This is Ethan's life. He deserves both of his parents. Not a fantasy built on someone else's convenience." Daniel didn't respond. But the next time I picked up Ethan, Brittany didn't come outside. Margaret stayed inside too. That's when I knew the message landed. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. Because the damage was deeper than a few flyers and birthday cards. It was in the way Ethan started asking if I was going to stay his mommy forever, as if the role could be reassigned like a library book. So I talked to Vanessa again. What's the nuclear option? I asked. She raised an eyebrow. You sure you want to go that route? I nodded. Vanessa explained we could file a formal petition to modify custody on the grounds of manipulation, emotional confusion, and inappropriate role substitution. It would mean mediation, maybe even court. I wasn't afraid of court. I was afraid of doing nothing. So we filed. And that changed everything. Daniel called me that night. First time in months. You're overreacting, he said. Do you want Ethan caught in legal battles? He's already caught in something worse, I said calmly. Erasure, he sighed. Margaret's old-fashioned. Brittany's just trying to help. She's helping herself to my role. And you're letting her... Silence. Then? What do you want? Jess. That was the moment. The breaking point. I wanted my son to know who his mother was. Without confusion. Without shame. I wanted my name on every school form. My voice heard in every decision. My place respected in every room. But more than that, I wanted them to stop acting like I disappeared just because I didn't scream. So I told him, I want what's mine. That includes my son, my dignity, my voice, all of it. He hung up. The next day, I got a letter from their family lawyer, a formal request to enter mediation with the intention to resolve co-parenting structure amicably. Translation? They didn't want this going public. They were scared. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't. Mediation day arrived 3 weeks later. Rain fell in slow sheets across Charleston's skyline. I wore black slacks, a navy blouse, and the necklace Ethan made me from pasta and string. For courage. The Morgans arrived 15 minutes late. Margaret walked in first, still wearing her pearls like armor. Daniel followed, lips pressed tight. Brittany wasn't allowed inside. Vanessa made sure of that, but I saw her waiting in the car, pretending not to look anxious. She knew her rein was cracking. The room was quiet, civil, cold. Just 4 chairs and 1 thick folder on the table. Jessica Morgan versus Daniel Morgan petitioned to modify custody. They didn't expect I'd have an attorney this sharp, this prepared. They didn't expect I'd be calm. Vanessa laid out everything. Documented examples of boundary violations, role confusion, school misrepresentation, and parental alienation. Exhibit A, the school flyer. Exhibit B, the Christmas card. Exhibit C, voice recordings of Ethan asking why Brittany was his new mommy. Exhibit D, a photo of Ethan's birthday cake with "From Mom Brittany" written on it. That one stung them. Margaret broke first. This is absurd, she said, trying to laugh. They're just being loving. Children need all the support they can get. Support is wonderful, Vanessa replied smoothly. Replacing the biological mother is not. Daniel stayed quiet, but I saw his jaw tighten. I didn't speak much. Didn't need to. My silence in that room was louder than anything they'd said. For once, they were on defense, and they didn't like it. By the end of the session, their lawyer proposed an agreement. All school and medical matters must be jointly communicated. No use of the title Mom or Mommy for Brittany. Ethan's holiday custody split would be strictly enforced. No public photos involving Ethan without joint parental consent. It was everything I asked for. But I didn't sign right away, because I had one more card to play. There's one more condition, I said quietly. Everyone turned. I pulled out a thin envelope and slid it across the table. Inside was a notarized letter, a request to transfer Ethan to a new school starting the following semester. One closer to my apartment, smaller, with a more neutral environment, Vanessa explained calmly. Given the ongoing confusion at the current school and the emotional distress Ethan has experienced, We're requesting a change. The new school has no connection to either household's extended family. Daniel looked like I'd punched him. You can't do that, he said. You're taking him away. No, I said. I'm putting him first. Something neither of you have done in months. Margaret stood abruptly. This is revenge. You're punishing us. I met her gaze. Steady. This isn't revenge. This is protection. And honestly, it's overdue. They didn't argue after that. The documents were signed 2 days later. The school transfer approved the following week. But I wasn't done. I knew them. Knew their patterns. Margaret didn't like losing control. Brittany didn't like being invisible. Daniel didn't like conflict, but hated public embarrassment more. So I made it clear. One misstep. One more boundary crossed. And I'd take them to court. Not mediation. Not conversation. Court. Where everything they'd done could become public record. After that, things changed. Brittany stopped calling Ethan sweetie in front of the teachers. Margaret didn't attend school functions. Daniel became polite. Careful. Cooperative. It wasn't reconciliation. It was respect. Disguised as fear. And I could live with that. But what mattered more, far more, was Ethan. He adjusted to his new school quickly. Started sleeping better. Smiling more. He drew a picture of our apartment one day and wrote under it, "My real home." I framed it. The biggest win came a few months later. During Mother's Day. I wasn't expecting much. No grand gestures. Just hoped for a handmade card. Maybe a hug. But when I picked Ethan up from school, he ran out with a bag in hand. "Open it," he said, bouncing with excitement. Inside was a small clay sculpture, me and him holding hands, and a note that read, "My mom is strong, smart, and never gives up." I cried in the car. Not from pain this time, but relief. 'Cause I'd fought back. Not with rage, not with revenge plots or drama, but with boundaries, receipts, patience, strength. And it worked. The Morgans weren't my family anymore. But they weren't my fear either. They'd learned that cutting someone out doesn't make them disappear. And I'd learned that love, when protected, doesn't need permission to exist. After the agreements were signed and the school transfer went through, things got quiet. Not in a dangerous way, more like the kind of silence that comes after a long storm. No more passive-aggressive texts. No more unexpected gifts from Brittany. No more surprise appearances from Margaret at school. Just silence. And that was more healing than any apology they never gave. Daniel didn't fight the changes. I think part of him was relieved. He had spent years avoiding confrontation, bending whichever way his mother pushed, letting others do the emotional labor. Now, for the first time, he was forced to operate within a framework rules he couldn't bend. He wasn't happy about it, but he respected it. That was enough. Ethan adjusted fast. Kids usually do when the adults stop pulling in opposite directions. His new school was smaller, more inclusive, and, best of all, neutral. There were no whispers about which mom belonged to him. No awkward looks from teachers. No hidden agendas. He made friends, started joining after-school art club, even invited me to volunteer in his class. The first time I walked into that classroom with a tray of cupcakes, I didn't feel like an outsider anymore. I felt like a mom. Just a regular mom. Margaret stayed distant after the mediation. And honestly, I preferred it that way. I knew she'd never admit fault. She wasn't built that way. For her. Admitting she was wrong would be the ultimate collapse of power. But something had changed. Because during one of Ethan's weekend visits, he came home with a letter, folded neatly, no return address, just a single sentence. Typed, "I suppose you love him in a way I never could understand." It wasn't signed, but I knew who it was from. It wasn't an apology. Not really. But it was the closest she'd ever get. And for once, I didn't need her validation. As for Brittany, she faded back into her role, not gone, but no longer trying to take up space that wasn't hers. I heard she started therapy. Good. Everyone needs to confront themselves at some point. Daniel and I found a rhythm. We weren't friends, but we were no longer adversaries. He started showing up on time, attending parent-teacher meetings, asking about Ethan's interests instead of just logistics. It wasn't a miracle, but it was human. One day, after a school event, he lingered in the parking lot. I didn't realize how much I let things get away from me, he said, watching Ethan run across the field with his classmates. I nodded, waiting. I thought I was doing what was best, letting Mom handle things, letting Brittany step in. I thought I was keeping the peace. I looked at him and said, "You weren't keeping peace. You were keeping me quiet." He didn't argue, didn't defend himself. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "For letting her treat you like that? For letting Ethan think it was normal." It was the first time I ever heard the words. And though they didn't erase anything, they helped. Because acknowledgement is a kind of healing, too. I didn't say it's okay. I said, "Thank you for saying that." That's all I owed him. Nothing more. Nothing less. Ethan flourished. He stopped asking if Brittany was his other mom. He started introducing me as my real mom. Without hesitation. He'd ask to bake with me on Saturdays. Draw pictures of our little apartment. Tell me about his school days, in detail. Not just headlines. He trusted me again. And I trusted myself again. Because that's the thing they don't tell you about being erased. It's not just others who forget you. You start forgetting yourself. You start questioning if maybe they're right. Maybe you were too emotional, too needy, too much. But when you reclaim your space, when you fight not to be louder, but to be heard, it changes you. I wasn't the same woman who stood outside that Thanksgiving door holding a pie and a heart full of hope. That woman thought love meant patience at any cost. This woman knew better. I didn't need to be invited to their table anymore. I had built my own, and at that table was love. Boundaries. Growth, and one little boy who knew exactly who his mother was. Looking back, I think the most painful part of all of it wasn't the rejection or the silence or even the way they tried to replace me. It was how normal it started to feel. That's the danger of gradual erasure. It doesn't storm in like a hurricane. It seeps in like fog, slowly dimming the light until you forget what clarity looks like. But here's what I learned. Just because people act like you don't matter doesn't mean you don't. And just because they rewrite the narrative doesn't mean you stop existing. I used to think revenge had to be loud, explosive, a dramatic act that made everyone stop and stare. But the truth is, the most powerful revenge is rebuilding yourself in front of the people who expected you to stay broken. Without fanfare, without needing to explain. Just showing up stronger, wiser, and quietly unstoppable. I didn't ruin Margaret's life. I didn't destroy Daniel or humiliate Brittany. But I did something far more terrifying in their eyes. I removed my permission, my silence, my role as the invisible. Accommodating one. Because people like that don't fear confrontation. They fear boundaries. And when you build a life they can't control, they lose interest fast. But this story isn't really about them anymore. It's about Ethan. About the look on his face when he hands me drawings with Mom scribbled in block letters. About the sound of his laugh in the mornings. About how he tells me I'm the best baker in the world, even when I burn the cookies. It's about the little boy who reminded me why I started fighting in the first place. I didn't win custody of a child. I reclaimed my place in his heart. And maybe that's the difference between revenge and healing. Revenge says, "You'll regret hurting me." Healing says, "I'll never let your hurt define me." And while I'll never forget what they did, how easily they tossed me aside, how carefully they tried to rewrite me, I no longer carry the weight of their approval. My story didn't end with a slammed door. It began there, because pain, when channeled, becomes purpose, and silence, when broken, becomes power. So, if you're someone who's ever been cut out, sidelined, replaced or made to feel like your love wasn't enough, hear this. You are not invisible. You are not replaceable. And you do not need anyone's permission to take up space in your own life. Build your table. Sit at it proudly. And if they never invite you back, good. That table was never worthy of you to begin with. I'm still just a mom with flour on her apron and bags under her eyes. I still have rough days. I still question myself. But now I question the right things. I no longer ask, why didn't they love me? I ask, why did I ever need them to? If this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to fight for your place, your voice, your worth, I'd love to hear your story. Drop a comment below. Share your experience. Let someone else know they're not alone. And if you're still in the middle of it, still standing on the porch with your pie, still wondering if you'll ever get your moment, stay strong. It's coming. And when it does, it'll be yours. If you found strength in this, please consider liking, subscribing, or sharing this video with someone who needs it. You never know who's still trying to find their voice in someone else's silence. Thank you for being here. And remember, never apologize for taking up the space you've earned.